litigation and personnel issues. I also regretfully announce the loss of another former member of the board, Miss Kathy Dybert. Served on the board from 94 to 97. She was 92 to 99. She was the vice president from 94 to 97. Kathy was a very active person in in the band, I know. She was active so far as putting on the May Day while her children were involved in the school district. She's also a couple years younger than I, a couple years behind me here at Exeter. She was an Exeter graduate. So I would like to extend our condolences to the Dybert family. Dr. Dybert, a son and 2 daughters, I believe. But if anyone is interested in the services, they are Thursday at the Presbyterian Church in Mount Penn. Let's see. I don't see Mr. Plant. Oh, there he is.
He was hiding behind.
I'm sorry, is there anyone who would like to address the board or bring up an issue at this time? Seeing no one leaping forward, Dr. Plant will leap forward. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. The junior high school report, we're in good shape at the junior high. Not a whole lot new, but I do want to catch up to speed on a couple of things that we're working on. The bulleted items, as I discussed in August, one of our main initiatives was the implementing of college prep math this year. And the faces of our teachers now in February, much different than they were in September. In a good way. I think in September, things were coming at them a mile a minute. They were stressed, without a doubt. Learning curve was sharp and quick, and I do have to give them an awful lot of credit because they put a lot of time and effort into learning the program and implementing it well. And I'm happy to say that things are going very well this year. Our master schedule initiative, we've been working very hard throughout the school year on this. I've met numerous times with our scheduling committee. We met with Dr. Reddick in November on 2 days, as I reported to the curriculum committee. And Dr. Reddick will be joining us again on March 5th. We are in good shape to meet our goal of having a scheduling model in place by the time Dr. Reddick returns. And we were presented with 2 models, one which is somewhat similar to what we're doing now with a 3-course rotation in each grade, and another that differs slightly in the fact that it provides students with 5 electives in the 8th grade. So in the next week and a half, we'll be coming to a conclusion, still in final deliberations about the model that we want to select, and we'll take that to a meeting with Dr. Reddick on March 5th. After which, we'll present to you and make sure that you know exactly what that model looks like and what we're doing. But I think throughout the process, we've tried to accomplish a number of things, certainly more math time, building STEM opportunities into the junior high curriculum, some common planning time, and always have an eye on preparing our students as best possible for high school to take advantage of the programs there. We've accomplished all of these things. The one thing that we were not able to accomplish that we were looking at was building in a remediation time period into the schedule. We still have enough minutes in the day to do that. However, we have some thoughts about how we'll be able to build that in possibly in a variety of ways without a specific period dedicated for that in advance. Content area literacy. Mrs. Klein, Mrs. D'Annunzio have done a nice job helping our teachers with RA, cohort number 6 of reading apprenticeship. Also with John Collins writing, type 1 and type 2 writings throughout all content areas. Our English department focusing on type 3 writing. making progress in this area as well. Julie is also working with our English department, making sure that our curriculum is up to date, working not only with our English department for junior high, but also with the high school. Our Oveus anti-bullying program, Stephanie Grace joined us in September. Student at Boyertown, and she's a rising country singer with a nice message. Her original song, Loser, based on her experiences in school. She was great with the kids, and she also performed at the high school on Friday evening. Did a really nice job, and I think the kids related to her very well. It's a good kickoff assembly for us, and our Oveus program is doing very well. John does an excellent job leading the steering committee with this program, and one of the things that they filled in this year and have done a terrific job with, they, along with the other lessons that our students receive, this year they built in lessons for our multiple disability students, for our regular population, to learn about the disabilities that these students have, to talk with the students, talk with their teachers, gave them an opportunity to ask questions about the disabilities, and to connect better with these students. It is amazing. When you sit there and see our students hear about the disabilities and then ask the questions that everyone has on their minds, they're wondering, and so now they have an opportunity to learn about these kids, and it's really, really a neat experience. So many of our students have said that it was the best experience that they've had. So kudos to John and his group for building that in. We also had one of our teachers present a lesson on autism with one of our students, and he has a unique talent. He can do word search puzzles quicker than anyone you've ever seen. And he processes things a little bit differently. So our life skills teacher talks a little bit about that, talks about how he is just like all the other kids. He has this one area of specialty, and so she gives all of the students a word search puzzle and allows him to crush them. And it really is amazing to watch. But the kids have, a much better appreciation for him and for the multiple disability students. It's been really, really a nice thing. So John has done an amazing job with that. Our Gifted Ed program. We've had 2 Exeter graduates present for students. Spring semester seminars include a variety of opportunities, and our kids have gone to the VCIU, taking a few seminars as well. And we're working hard to talk to our students about the growth mindset, because so often our gifted students put so much pressure on themselves, and they're so grade-oriented that they're afraid to take academic risks. And what we want them to do is challenge themselves, despite the fact that they may stumble, learn from their mistakes and from maybe minor failure, so that they can grow. And so we're trying to teach that growth mindset and build that in, not only for gifted students, but for us. Our curriculum review, we started in June. Mrs. Klein, Mr. King, and I presented a new curriculum template for the teachers, and during the Act 80 days in June, all of our teachers had an opportunity to work on curriculum, and we followed up with that throughout the school year. Dr. John Weller was here this past week to talk with our department heads and our teacher leaders, trying to build their knowledge and leadership capacity for the coming year. And our tech department has been active for junior high, upgrading computers, building infrastructure, and working with our librarian to make our library less of a traditional library and more of a media center in the technology area. And we're headed in the right direction there. That's going to be a strength as we move forward. PSSA this year, we're getting ready for our April assessments. A different format this year. English language arts takes both reading and writing into one test. We'll be testing over the course of 3 weeks. English language arts in the first week for 4 days, math in the second week for 3 days, and science in the third week for 2 days. And also our 8th grade students who are taking Algebra 1 for the last time will take the Keystone exams that they've passed. About 70 students will do that. As you are well aware, our junior high math counts team earned first place in Berks County competition this past weekend. We're very proud of that. And I think it's particularly notable because you'll remember just 2 years ago, we were struggling to field a team at the junior high. And we worked very hard to promote the program. And Mrs. Topper did a nice job with the students. So we're very happy about that. Our honors choir performed at the Reading Royals game over the weekend as well. And we got great reviews for the performance as well. So things are very good.
Yeah, Eric, if you could, I know I heard this wrong, but could you just repeat what you said about the electives? When you were
Yes.
talking about the schedule.
Yes, one of the models, well, actually, both of the models have electives built into them. The first model includes a block rotation, similar to what we do now, where art and facts and a STEM opportunity, tech opportunity, would rotate 30 days apiece for a total of 90 days. Students would also have 3 electives in that model, including music, world language, and a couple of other electives. In the other model, it eliminates the rotation of courses, eliminates the 3-block 3-course rotation, and becomes 5 electives: music, world language, and a number of other opportunities.
Oh, I did hear you correctly. I just couldn't figure out how you could work the 5 in. Now I see. Thank you.
So what are your teachers thinking as far as which model, or what is the administration thinking as far as which model would be better?
Well, that's what we're mulling over right now, to be honest with you. And on Thursday of this week, I'm presenting for our teachers again. We'll walk you through what the schedules look like for each different type of student that we have. And we want them to look at the schedule through the eyes of a student. Okay? The decision cannot be made on self-interest or emotion. It has to be made on what's best for kids. And so we look at the percentage of our students who are double music students, those who are single music students, those who don't take any music, those who are learning support students, gifted ed students, and we walk our teachers through each of the models from through the eyes of those students. And so by next Friday, the 20th, we hope to come to a conclusion. Select.
Your math students that did the Olympiad, how many are 7th grade students and how many are 8th grade students?
Predominantly 8th grade students. Yashika Kithatu, Sid Najera, Paraju, Ben Bain, and Michelle Lang, 8th grade students. Noel Narvaez finished 4th in the county, is an 8th grade student as well, so predominantly 8th grade students.
But you do have students in 7th grade preparing for that? Or how is, or they just come in?
4 are on the team that competes.
Oh, okay.
But students may compete individually as well. So we're actually taking 5 students to the state tournament. The 4 who are on the team, Rashika, Sid, Michelle, and Ben, and also Noel will be going also as an individual.
Well, that was a great accomplishment, and congratulate them for me, and I'm sure the rest of the board feels the same way.
Has the junior high school ever had a team that's made it to the States before?
Sure, that's a good question, Tara.
My daughter did.
The best of these guys.
Well, fix it so
I'm sorry.
maybe so.
That was the Michael Lang, Aaron,
Oh, okay.
and Warren Genova team plus 1. I forget who was the 4th person on the team. Yeah. I was very happy because I'm a grader at that every year, and 2 years ago I was very disappointed with the fact that we didn't have a team, knowing the strength of our programs, plus the fact that the number of students we have in our school district, and seeing smaller private schools that are always there. And it's not just that you have to win, but it's the fact that you want to make sure you're present and you're competing. And you know, the one thing that was very interesting that, you know, as students are coming in, didn't matter the school, you hand out this little board. The first thing I go, I'm looking at this board, it's like 2 foot by 1.5 foot, going, I would be so messy on that thing. But everyone you hand that, everyone said thank you. You know, every kid. So that was the first thing, you know. So everybody, but then the kicker was when one of the engineers, because we're all a bunch of geeks that play that, he taps on the microphone. The whole auditorium, like 200 kids, silent. And we all looked at each other and go, wow, that's pretty impressive. We can't get that from one of our, you know, professional society meetings. But no, it was a really good thing. I met with the kids briefly afterwards. They had no clue who I was. But very polite, very nice. And I thought it was a very good performance just for the fact that, you know, they were good teammates. They congratulated each other along the way.
They're terrific.
Any other questions for Mr. White? Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
So will you have a math team next year?
Will we have a team?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
It won't be for lack of effort, as it wasn't 2 years ago. We were beating the bushes trying to get kids on that math counts team. For whatever reason, it didn't work out, but it's a nice turnaround.
Gotta start red shirt.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Schlesinger,
Evening.
are we on step 2 or 3?
This is number 3. This is
Okay.
it. Won't be seeing me for a little while after this. I'll be relatively brief. We are expecting to go to market tomorrow for the competitive sale. The sale is scheduled for 12 o'clock noon. We went through the rating process and received a double A stable rating, which is the same as we had before, as we expected. A copy of that rating report is actually located from pages 2 to 7, if you want to read it. Right now, the market has been a little more interesting than normal, we'll say, but rates are still in a good place. We had a sale today for Pottsgrove School District, right down the road. They're a double A credit, just like you, and we received a fair amount of proposals, and the rates were strong. So we're pretty confident that the sale tomorrow will be a good one. Obviously, if something changes, certainly we can postpone it, but I think we're in a good place. We're the only competitive sale of the day, so hopefully we'll be well received. So in the meantime, actually, I did go and talk to this bank. You might recall last time I was here. They also provided us a proposal that we held over essentially to today to allow us that hedge just in case if we wanted to not do the bond issue. At this point, my recommendation is to go forward with the bond issue, as you do save about $100,000 more, give or take, when you assume the fixed rate bond issue versus the cap rate on the bank loan. I guess that's an important point. That's the worst case scenario. You could get a little higher savings if you assume a lower rate in the back end, but for worst case scenarios, it is a little bit better by about $100,000. So it makes some sense to do it that way. Outside of that, I actually plan on coming back to the meeting on the 17th to actually report the final results of the sale. But again, as expected, we think it's going to be somewhere around 500 to 550, maybe somewhere in between. Obviously, the market will tell once we have the sale tomorrow. But again, it's going to be probably over 13% savings. So again, hopefully another good sale for tomorrow. So now I'll stop and take a breath. If anyone's any questions, but we hit everything we needed to do. We locked in $14 million of the $19 million of the fund. So get everything right, I think.
Questions or comments? We all agree to pass up this?
So let's see where it goes. I'll be in touch with Ann tomorrow. We should probably report back to the board. When the stage up again, I'll be back next week with the real results. So we'll get some documents signed tomorrow and hopefully good sale.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Actually, I have a question about something altogether different,
Okay.
but it's in your line of expertise. I'm going to ask my colleague here to put it in a sentence because I'll screw it up if I do it.
We've talked before about bond issues to fund our pension obligations. We understand from Peter and from our discussions with Ann that the way we carry it currently on our financial statement, we can't issue a longer term bond because we carry it as a short-term liability. Carol and I were just talking, when we bring that onto our balance sheet, possibly at the beginning of the next fiscal year?
On the statement of net position for ending June 30, 2015,
Okay.
won't be in the fund balance sheet, the governmental balance sheet will be on the entity-wide statement for net position.
So we have it on as of June of 15. Are we going to be able to consider and discuss as a board the possibility of issuing a bond to fund the pension obligations when it comes onto the balance sheet?
We can at least talk about it. I mean, I think there's no changes yet. As we've talked about in the past, these don't happen, but that doesn't necessarily mean they can't happen at some point. There have been districts that have done something that kind of gets you to the same place for almost like working capital in some form to legalize the pension obligations. I think we should have that conversation next year. And I hate to say it passing the buck here, but I think there are some things that could be happening that people may want to consider if the rules change, if we do change. I know we know it's going to change in your books. It's certainly something to consider. Obviously, we do have the legal side that we want to make sure of pointing in like he's here. But Peter will certainly be a part of that conversation. So I don't want to dismiss it in any way, but I think it's at least worthwhile to consider. I did have some internal talks with some of the people that don't do school deals, and I think they kicked it around, but obviously nothing really happened yet. But we can come up with something with this issue as well. So I'm not sure I'm giving you the right answer, but at least we've got the right group of people we can talk to try to come up with something.
And again, I think and again, just to make sure we're all on the same page and what Carol and I just briefly talked about before the start of this meeting, it's my contention that with interest rates as low as they are, and with our funding or with our debt service falling off dramatically around 2026, 2027, that we could take some of the near-term pressure off of our fiscal position by issuing a pension bond at these low rates, worrying about them, much farther down the road, and doing some of the things we may better use the money for. For example, some facilities work on the transportation center, or a kindergarten, something that would take some of the pressure off of us, because all the money is flowing into this pension obligation dramatically rising.
Yeah, and again, they are popular with cities and such. It just it does not happen. So we probably do the way they're funded and such. But since the rules are changing and where they're going to books, maybe there's more of an opportunity or there's discussion going forward. Usually is different than state funded.
Does that need state legislation at all to change that, or as far as, us doing?
Probably. There's probably some state issues you may have to deal with. But
The way it reads in the code is that it says that we can fund unfunded pension obligations to an entity such as Beazers. It already exists. The only problem was it didn't appear on our financial statements as a discrete liability and could tell us roughly how much we owed.
I told you. Yeah,
But they didn't we don't have it on our statements. That's going to change as of June. We're going to add 20 or whatever.
It's 3 times your payroll, 90 million, but we'll get the number from Beazers. They will give us a number.
90 million on our.
And I can tell you that some issuers are disclosing that. Most people know who you use, if you already know that it's going to come on your books.
Right.
So it is certainly a discussion at this point. So we'll keep it in the back of our mind, of course. We'll see what goes. If this becomes popular or it's a viable way to do things, certainly we'll welcome it.
Thank you for answering my question.
You said next year, you talking calendar or school?
School. That's when it's going to get on the books, so there'll be some more discussion.
other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, Bob. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Next week, February 17th, at the voting meeting, the board will adopt a preliminary general fund budget. And again, we go through the process to provide some flexibility, especially in light of the fact that we don't know what the state's education budget will offer to us in other school districts. And this provides us with the ability to apply for referendum exceptions, all per Act 1.
One slide, Lynette.
Thank you very much, Ann.
Good job, Ann.
Excellent work.
My slides aren't coming.
Tremendous presentation.
There's so much in that slide.
I don't have that little drop down.
I think we're
There you
done.
go.
These are working.
Yep.
It's only 12, folks. The expense estimate for the revenue, let's just start with revenue. Minor changes to 15-16, really based on our the impact of retirements. That's probably one of the most significant changes from the last presentation, was we know the number of retirees. But how it impacts revenue is that if your Social Security and retirement expense goes down or up, it really drives a change in the revenue. So for 15-16, I will show you a minor change in revenue. For 14-15, we're staying the same as I had projected last month. Variance to original budget, $593,000. The increase from this year to next, $886,000 with no tax increase. Again, driven by an increase in state sources, which is your mainly retirement. The expense estimate I have revised for this year, and it's really based upon trends that I've been watching. Dental claims. We had lowered our projection for this year based upon going with another administrator, United Concordia, but as it's playing out, and I'm working with them right now to give me some claims trends, because we're not experiencing what they projected that we would. So stay tuned with that. Dr. Miller and I and Patty Dahl, Mrs. Dahl, had met last week, and we'll probably be meeting again. The special education budget, for me, has always been something that it takes time to get your arms wrapped around it, because it's a moving target. You have students being placed, you have many contracted services. It's a $13 million plus budget, and it deserves different meetings and a lot of evaluating really what's going on. So special ed, particularly the speech therapy. Earlier in the year, there was trending at what we were budgeted at, but now it seems to be creeping up a bit, and Dr. Miller is in touch with the company that's providing the services to monitor that. So projecting $442,000 per year versus $380,000, and I'm putting that into the 15-16 budget as well. Our OTPT up slightly. Legal, I've increased it a bit. All these different contracted services, $135,000 more than I had estimated last month. And again, all of these things change as the months go on. Purchase services, cyber charter, Tuition, it's down 86,000. The enrollment is at about 94 students. Private placement tuition, from what I had estimated a month ago and going through all the student placements with Dr. Miller, is up about 105,000. And I do have a slide. I'll just jump to it real quick. It really shows the trend. It really depends upon the student population. This is the estimate for this year. Then it goes down significantly in 15-16. There are a number of students that are graduating. But I know that principals and special ed really try very hard to keep the students in the building and try to offer them as much as they can before placing them.
And Ann, if I could just jump in for one moment and just say that I believe we're starting to trend slightly downward, I'm almost afraid to say it, in terms of cyber school tuition. I think it sort of peaked, and now a couple of reasons, we're starting to provide our own version of that at a lower cost, and coupled with the fact that people are beginning to realize it's not a panacea for whatever problems their kids are experiencing in public school. So I think that we're getting more kids back. I think we're getting more kids on our own cyber schools. Sorry to interrupt, Dan. I just wanted to...
No, that's perfect timing, because 94, 95, where we peaked at 120 in 12, 13. So really, the cost has gone down some. The school district does offer their Cyber in a Box, the program that Dr. Miller is piloting, as well as UDA, our own cyber program, which we have 20 students between those two alternatives. And the cost of those is around $100,000. So we are netting a savings by using those programs. So overall, net increase 222,000. So our shortfall from the 97,000 I presented last month to 319. Again, this is 15-16, $3.9 million deficit. And again, you're familiar with this slide. This is the preliminary budget. Right now, $71.8 million, or $4.5 million increase year to year. And again, you can see it's related mostly to wages, benefits, and some additional investments in technology and telecommunications. So the revenue, as I said earlier, changed slightly. The expense, again, the impact on retirements, 7 retirements. And these are the different areas, assuming that they will all be filled. And again, discussions will continue on replacing them, as well as all the new staff requests that are part of this preliminary budget. A lot of prioritization needs to take place. Again, the contracted services, that's occurring this year, and it's trending. I've floated through to the 15-16 budget year. Some supplies and textbooks related to the new math curriculum. We just recently got some quotes from vendors, so I'm adding that back into the budget. And major improvements. I had originally put in $550,000, really not knowing what the general fund was going to support. And I had mentioned last week about the tremendous savings that we're realizing through these refinancing. Why not use some of that to possibly fund some of the capital things, projects that are on our radar for next year, $2.4 million. So next year's savings is $457,000. So as an alternative, I've put that amount in to capital improvements to possibly fund. And again, it's prioritization. of all the projects as we go through the proposed final budget process. So that accounts for this number going up by $631,000. This is the current year, again, the shortfall of $319,000. And again, as the months go on, I'll be revising estimates for utilities, supplies, et cetera. Numbers will change, as will as we prioritize and go through 15, 16 budget line items. This will change as well. But currently, this is what we're looking at next year, $3.9 million shortfall with no tax increase. And as it flows through to the fund balance, commitments, assignments, and unassigned fund balance. The preliminary budget, you must show that you have a need to raise taxes above the index. This is our index. With the exceptions, this includes the special education exception. This would be the pension exception. So this would be the maximum rate. So if we submit a preliminary budget showing this, this allows you to apply for these exceptions. And really that is the whole point of the preliminary, going through this process. And this would be the impact on higher tax rates, on the shortfall of revenue, less expense, and obviously the impact on our fund balance. The exceptions really provide, plus the index, about $1.8 million in additional revenue. This is about $1 million, and each of these are around $400,000 to $450,000. So a lot of the projections will change. That's the common theme on all school districts that are doing a preliminary budget. March 3rd is the governor's address. We submit the exceptions by March 5th. And again, as I stated, it's going to be a lot of prioritization. In your packets, I did give you the official form PDE 2028, which really reflects everything that I just explained, only in their format. And on the agenda, on the workshop agenda to move to next week is to approve the preliminary budget and to authorize applying for the exceptions. Are there any questions?
Yes, and in retirement contributions, the $421,000 here in 29, is that total where we get half back from the state, or?
What page are you on? Oh, the retirement contributions, that is the value of the exception, which really is looking at our current costs compared to what we're projecting for next year. But the way the exception is written, it cannot be, your base is the 2011-12. So really it's looking at the year-to-year increase and saying, okay, this is how much more that your cost is increasing.
But you're asking,
Net.
is it our net cost?
Our net, it would be net, the net
Yeah.
increase. So,
Okay, that's what's on it.
from
Rather
your,
than our growth.
the net.
Any other questions, comments?
I have a question about the, using the one-time refinancing. I mean, I can see where that was an expense. I mean, in terms of using that money.
Right.
Where does that money show up on the revenue side?
Well, actually, what happens here, the principal and interest is declining by that much. And it's really going into an improvement line, a capital line. So you're keeping your budget consistent, in terms of,
It doesn't show up as revenue.
it doesn't show up as
Yeah.
revenue. Because it may be adjustment to reduce principal and interest, but putting it down into,
You're just paying
equipment,
less
capital.
out. It's reducing
Well,
the
it's
expense.
what you're using it
Yeah.
versus letting it flow through to your fund balance or use for anything else. It just, to me, I think it's a discussion that we will have during the proposed final significant savings through all of this, 2.2 million. How is it best to be used? You know, and with all the capital projects that we have, why not use some toward that? I also have a concern about budgeting where you are reducing your principal and interest, and that's actually happening, but in a couple of years it goes back up. And you have to be aware of, you know, how really to plan for all that.
Thank you. Moving on in the agenda, we'll have two sets of minutes to consider at next week's meeting for approval. Dr. Tamura, business functions.
Under business functions, it's going to be recommended that the Board of Directors approves the Berks County Intermediate Unit mandated services budget for the 2015-16 year in the amount of $1.796027 million. The budget reflects a 2.1% increase in Berks member district payments for BCIU mandated services over the 2014-15 year. There's going to be a change here. The Exeter Township School District share of the budget is projected to be $47,269.48, or, and this is where the change, $972.18 higher than the current year. So please make that change on A. It's going to be recommended that the Board of School Directors approves the fiscal 2015-16 preliminary general fund budget and authorize the submittal to the Department of Education on the required forms. And under business functions 5C, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors authorize school district officials to file with the Pennsylvania Department of Education for exceptions to allow tax increases above the index as authorized by the 2006 Taxpayers Relief Act, amended by Act 25 of 2011. Under 5D, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors will authorize school district officials to purchase portable snow removal system to be used to remove snow from transportation vehicles. The total cost with assembly, installation, and training is $24,900. The vendor, Quinton Machinery, acknowledges that they are a sole source vendor, therefore competitive bidding is not required. And finally, under 5E, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves budget transfers for the month of January 2015 in the amount of $88,461. And that is under attachment 5E.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about D. When we were talking about this, it was my understanding that in order to use this machine, it would take all day to get the snow off the buses.
No, that was without the machine. That's currently, am I correct?
Currently, they use ladder systems to take it off, and it takes a good part of the day. One bus at a time in the garage, a ladder on each side, and then somebody may be outside with a ladder, which is very dangerous. Doing it. Whereas this would be placed on the area where they exit the property, and they could drive right through. I have a video of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question about that. It said that they could remove 2 feet of snow. I think that was the machine. Well, are there any ones that are less than 2 feet that we could purchase for a lesser price?
I think what they're looking at is that showing what the capacity of it is you would not want to get something scaled down. It's saying typically you would use that for your 2-inch snow or your 6-inch snow. But in that case there, or that we would be the new Boston that gets the 2 feet of snow. No, you know what, I've seen 3 feet of snow here. And you have to be prepared for those things, you know, it's just an action of being ready. That's the
Well, I
concept.
mean, all I'm asking are there any less, like,
Well, this is a patent, this is, someone designed this to solve the problem. There isn't another company out there which is more expensive than this. But that's the capacities Mr. Brady explained. Obviously, it can be adjusted.
How long is that video?
Oh, it's not long.
so they
Yeah,
only
sure.
make one machine?
Oh, there we go. So we,
What do you do your driveway then?
Does that go along with my car?
hey, can I get my car Simonized with that?
Can I get that
understand why
wheel,
Scott
the
doesn't
tire
have one.
shiny thing? Just put it
Tell you what, there's nobody pulling out.
We should have had this years ago.
14 feet of snow. This is money well
Yes,
spent.
Okay, it's like this.
Have you visited any, you talked with any districts that have this?
We went to the IU to see it. They purchased one for this year. They had done a study of their overtime costs. Now they're a larger operation than we
Yeah.
are. Last year they incurred $20,000 in overtime doing this, removing snow, so paid back in 1 year.
And are they pleased with the performance?
Yes. I do have a couple other references he gave me. I'm going to contact them as well before next week.
What's the maintenance that's required of this unit for the squeegee type device? They expect it to last a year or expect a couple years of service out of it? And did they give us any kind of feeling about the service level of it? Do we, as far as how long that squeegee device lasts, or we need to have a wearable part in place or anything like that?
I'll have to ask that question.
And then what the
That's 6
costs are
buses.
for those parts? So, every 10 buses, you
Every
have
10
10
buses.
buses.
I guess.
What, you have to replace that squeegee every 10 months?
You know, when they talk about 2 years, I was assuming that material and workmanship, but I'll get it clarified.
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess it depends how much snow we have too.
Does it dry rot before you actually use it?
And the height, is this thing adjustable so I can do the bands?
That's
Yes.
what you said.
I heard it, but I didn't see how it would happen, or how quickly it would happen.
They didn't show it, but they talked about it.
Yeah,
And do they only make one machine?
that's true.
This is a portable one. They also have a fixed mount and at this point we prefer portable just because it can be moved out of the way after the winter season, especially the current site we're at. I'm not sure what the extra rod, I don't believe we need the extra rod scan.
And how long does it take us to actually get the unit?
3
We'll have it by
weeks.
summer.
You know,
First couple of months will be great.
is there any chance to speed it up and get it before,
Well, he indicated 3 weeks, so after it's approved, we get the ball rolling. I could find out. I think it's short, deliver and install.
We should have done this before.
Yeah,
We'll still get it, then we'll get it in
Yeah,
January.
we're doing
Yeah.
We should have done this one.
Well, I did have an alternate that would have cost us $30,
Go ahead, Bob.
but since
Bob and
it
I-
wasn't
The
through
superintendent
development,
wasn't overly thrilled with his
Yeah.
solution.
I suggested putting 2 pieces of rope on the end of a long piece of the vinyl
PVC pipe.
Uh, the
An
vinyl
8-inch PVC.
crown molding there.
Oh, the crown molding.
Yeah,
You throw it over the top of the bus, 2 bus drivers get a hold of each piece of rope and you pull it down the thing.
Then you get the pulled muscles and we have the guys.
That's all right, that's a different insurance.
Not to mention the overtime.
You still pay it.
The superintendent wasn't
We'll pay more
impressed and she demanded
I
we
thought it
go
was
on
very
with this.
creative,
Talk to the
but
text
it is
and see if they
creative.
can build
Let's
one.
move on. Yeah, the kids in our
Thank you,
STEP
Dr.
program
Timur.
could invent something.
Exactly.
We could probably convince the football players it was good conditioning.
Strength and
Dr.
conditioning.
Bender, personnel,
For
please.
personnel, Part A, we have retirements, certificated staff, 1A through E, and support staff, 2A. Resignations, we have resignations of number 1, support staff, and number 2, extracurricular staff. Part C, appointments of certificated staff and support staff. Part D, leave of absence. Part E, change of status for support staff. And then Part F for staff conferences. I'd like to ask about number 8 on staff conferences. We have a foreign language teacher going to a Google for Education.
Google, yes. She had a.
She's a
I have
French
to,
teacher.
yes, she is. I have to look real quick. She had a really good nationality. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. She uses Google Docs in class. She can try right up there. She uses integration of resources and technology into the classroom, use and application of Google Drive, Google Docs, and Classroom for collaboration, and part of the sentence was cut off. So she uses it quite a bit in her French classes.
It's part of the one-to-one initiative where all of our teachers that are working with students in the one-to-one are using, we're trying to get everybody into the Google Docs.
Yeah, with the Chromebooks.
Building capacity in that area is one of our key objectives.
I was just curious, I mean, is she gonna bring back that knowledge and then train the trainer in terms of helping other teachers?
We just had a meeting today about the upcoming professional development in Google Doc training for certainly our high school teachers is going to be high priority regarding that, as well as next year for our junior high teachers, because one of our goals for the computer apps position, the computer apps class in the junior high, is to really build up the capacity of our students going into the high school so that they can hit the ground running when they get these new pieces of equipment that they're expected to use. So teachers are spending less time teaching the actual application and more time using the application to further their instruction.
I think Mr. McFarland had a comment. You look like you wanted to say something.
Yes, she is the department head. She's done a phenomenal job, both in her official capacity as well as her own teaching practice, in really stepping up for the best part of teacher leadership. She's already brought a ton of both management with the Google Classroom applications to her department and beyond. Also with student work, the level of ownership that she has transferred to her students. Some of the things they're doing using the language, videotaping it, sharing it, collaborating together in terms of group work, it's absolutely phenomenal. So she really stepped up as a leader.
And I give her a lot of credit for putting me on the spot. As I was walking by her room, she kind of dragged me in and she started asking me questions in French, and I had to draw on knowledge that I haven't had to draw on for many, many, many years. So I was able to mutter a few words.
I guess the thought that occurred to me was that an efficient use of our resources to send one teacher versus the training that And every teacher would need that training, or how, what the,
And our
Fair
tech
question.
department is well equipped to provide that, but I think it's valuable for teachers, especially department chairs, to, to go out and bring that back to their department through their own, specialize for their own department rather than a tech department that, has a more generalized approach to its use in
I
education.
believe the tech department is actually funding this trip because they know what type of technology she's using, and they want her to foster that development even further. So they're seeing it, and they're the ones that are partnering with her. She's really stepping up.
great, thank you. That's all for personnel.
Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Kutcher, student functions.
Item A, for the trips in the 60-mile radius, and would you explain or describe again the senior high gifted students that travel to the oratory?
Yeah, that was the Penn State one, correct? Or no, that's the American Legion, okay. Yes, there was one young lady who won first place in that contest, as I think I reported to you earlier this week, and her teacher said unfortunately she couldn't continue because her activity schedule was so full, she just wasn't able to have the time to prepare or to participate, but she's hoping, the teacher is hoping that this young lady would re-enter next year and give it more full attention and be able to continue to compete because she did so well this year. So, a good experience for the kids.
It's amazing that you can be in first place and have too much to do to go
Yeah.
on. Anyhow, and we know about the math, which was really great. So we'll see next the trip to Harrisburg is within 60 miles, so we'll list it.
Yeah.
Item B, the following trips up beyond the 60-mile radius, the senior high music students are going to be Stroudsburg, and senior high band students are going to Washington to perform at the Marine Barracks. Item C, we'll be moving that the board adopts the school calendar. Have we come up with
Yes, I believe we finally arrived at a third version that was different from the first and second version. It sort of meets it in the middle of the week, starting on a Wednesday, having the teachers start on Monday, the kids start on Wednesday, the 26th. And that is the day that has been indicated that BCTC would also start, so the kids would not miss any of their classes for the technical school. So I think that's a good middle ground, and we've got to just make a decision and move on, and I think that's a good decision. It actually has us, barring a lot of snow day makeups, it actually has us ending school on, I believe it's June 3rd, which is June 3rd. It's the first Friday in June, which is graduation day. So the last day of school coincides with graduation day, unless there would be 2 or more snow days, in which case that would be pushed into the next week.
So we're going to get the Salmon Center for June the 3rd.
I guess we'll have to, I think it's too early to book it now. At least that's, if they didn't, in the past, they wouldn't book it this far ahead. But I'll definitely mention to Mr. Kane that we'll wait for the board to pass it next week, and then he can check into that. So I think that would be the best date. Yes, it is June 3rd, 2016. I can't believe we're talking about 2016.
It's just that there seems to be competition for the Salmon Centers.
Yeah. Mr. McFarland, could you mention to Mr. Kane to, as soon as they're able to, I'm not sure, look into getting June 3rd, 2016 as graduation day for next year, the first Friday in June. I don't think they'll book it this far ahead, but put that on the
We've
screen.
historically had first dibs. I think we're in a good time frame to make sure that we continue that. I will email him in about 10 seconds.
Boy, isn't technology grand?
Ah, you say so. item D, we're going to approve the tuition agreement with New Story. And that's it.
Are there any questions, comments? I'd really like to know what they're going to do with the Marine Barracks. That's
Yeah.
where the president's home is.
Do you want me to look it up?
Not right now.
Oh, okay.
Barracks is where they sleep, isn't it?
No. It's a station.
Not the Marine.
It's an antiquated term.
Oh.
Okay.
Right?
I thought it was sleeping.
Yeah, we have
That's all.
There is a nice mess hall. I ate there 2 years ago.
Well, we've never, I don't think our students have ever gone there, so maybe one of them could put down on the
I'm just wondering, the Marine Band, although some of those people are well-trained in Marine type issues, others are used to performing in other venues. And they're hired on the spot, given a certain number of stripes, and they're in the president's zone. Because it's hard to find a Marine that plays the violin well. So, but
This could get
I
rapidly
just-
downhill.
yeah. Discussion item. Mrs. Peasia, to you I owe an apology. Savor it. I don't give them very often. But I shut you off when you asked about this. So I apologize.
No, I accept your apology, Mr.
Thank you, ma'am. But as Mr. Diesner pointed out, I do not have the authority to dissolve the technology committee. Now, that was done on the basis of the current chair's recommendation. Experience I had as the third person down the line, I felt my efforts were useless when I was doing that. I didn't see anything great come out of Andy when he had it, because it is a reactive committee. The requirements are determined by our syllabus or by time. If a certain thing expires, if a certain program expires, or is no longer being supported, they bring that to us as a problem, and we vote to determine whether they will expend the funds to solve that problem. There's two ways I can solve my sin. I can atone for my sins. I can take the aggressive way and recommend that we change the policy. Or I can take the submissive way, point two people to it, and then they never meet. So I would like to discuss that with you members of the board.
Reviewing the fact that I look at technology as not just a classroom centric, I look at it as a business philosophy. And the fact that right now, if you look in this room, we're using technology just to get through our meeting. Ann's over there typing. Previously, we had our presentation, and we have whiteboards throughout our facilities. We talked previously about the extension of our Wi-Fi through our buildings in junior high school, and I'm sure we're talking about that in our other facilities. I think you have to look at it past just the software that's being used in the classroom to how is our technology affecting our operations to make it efficient and to make it practical and make it 21st century oriented. So because of that, I think that though, Bob, you may have called it a reactive type of group, I think the issue is not the fact it's reactive, is whoever was in that committee previously may not have looked at it as something where they had to invest their time, or maybe they just didn't grasp where it should be going, or maybe they weren't communicating with the people that are most involved with technology day to day, which would be Mr. Way in our case. You know, for instance, with the Building Facilities Committee, do I know what's happening with buildings and facilities every day? No, but I know that Mr. Pitts is. So in this case, if I was on this particular committee, I would definitely be engaging Mr. Way to discuss, it doesn't have to be a monthly meeting, but maybe a bi-monthly meeting or quarterly meeting to sit down and talk about where we are right now and what we need to be looking to address, not just in the next 6 months or a year, but what's our game plan looking 2 to 5 years out. So when we are looking at the budgets with Ann, she can then forecast it out and predict and look at how she has to allocate the funds to be able to grow. And then also, with the reactionary part, if we find that there's some kind of technology that's now become something that really becomes important for a district, we then can use that group to investigate it or look at ways of diving in a little bit further than just saying, you know, well, Joe Way will come to us when he needs something. And I don't think that's necessarily the way we want to operate. At least that's my personal opinion.
I do think that Mr. Chapina had spoken very frequently with Joe Way, and it became a case where the initiatives that we were undertaking in the classroom were so closely related to technology that we couldn't talk about those initiatives in the curriculum committee format without bringing the technology department into the discussion. So it seemed to be a natural fit. And I believe Mr. Chapina did discuss that with Mr. Way. But your point is well taken also. Technology is used for other things besides classroom. It's used for employee productivity and just the general running of the school district. So I see it both ways, and sometimes it may need to be blended with curriculum and maybe not be a standalone, but other times it may need to be that.
My concern, and I don't know whether or not this analogy will make sense to you, but when I first looked at this, back in the day, we used to offer geography classes. And then we decided, or education in general in the state of Pennsylvania decided that geography would be incorporated in social studies classes, and it wouldn't be a standalone. And now kids don't know anything about geography.
Stop teaching geography.
Yeah, and my concern is that I believe this board needs to have technology as a focus. And my concern is that it's going to become, the focus is going to be lost. Whether or not we actually make the decisions, I think we need to have, it needs to be one of our priorities as a board. I think technology is important. I think what we do here is important. I think the infrastructure is important. I think the hardware is important. I think there are other software applications besides curriculum. And that's my major concern. The other red flag is just that I really do believe we have these board policies, and we need to follow them. And it just really bothers me when we just sort of ignore the policy.
Well, I had been assigned to the technology committee along with Mr. Yalger when he was the person in charge as the chairman. And to be honest with you, I would always be asking Andy, when are we going to have a technology committee meeting? When are we going to have a technology committee? And then finally, you know, he found time to do it. I mean, I can't really speak for him, but I think he was very busy with many things in his own personal life. You know, his mother was sick, his father was sick. And I don't want to go into that, but what I'm saying is I had to prod him to get a meeting, and finally he did. Do I think that it's a necessary component and it should be a standing committee? I do, because technology is such an important issue in education as compared to what it was when I left teaching, and we were just getting into it. But now it's very much into the whole educational system, and I think, you know, the board needs to focus on what's going on and not just you know, and a lot of money is spent there too. So, you know, we should have some critical oversight into that and see where our money is going and you know, how programs are going and things like that. So I think it should be a standard. I don't know how many years it was. When was it? I don't, you know, I wasn't on the board.
it's been there as long as I've been around, so it hasn't met very frequently, no matter who was chairing it. And to be honest with you, I think technology is something that, you know, is so integrated into our personal lives and our work lives that we almost take it for granted, and we don't really, as long as it's going well, you know, we don't often have a meeting to specifically discuss it because things are going fine. You know, there may not be anything new and that we need to discuss, and sometimes you certainly don't want to meet just to meet.
No, we didn't have all people.
Exactly,
that
yeah,
doesn't want to
yeah. I
meet
think
to
we all
meet.
feel that
But,
way.
and I don't think anybody on this board,
No, I don't think so either. That's what I'm saying. We don't want to meet
feels
just
the
to
same
meet.
way. But I do think it is an important, I mean, I don't even know why it became a standing committee, but, you know, I think if it was going to be dissolved, I would think it had to be a board decision.
It became a standing committee, obviously, because it was important to the future of this school district. And the board felt that it needed to be a focus. I will tell you, I would suggest that these committees, I think standing committees should meet on a regular basis.
All right, I was the sincere one. Oh, either you two want to talk? Because you get to talk before I get to talk. Oh, you were talking
I
now.
did talk.
Do you think? All right, I had the chair before Yager. We conversed once about what is now the one-to-one. But that conversation led to his investigating it, and he said, well, maybe we can get in 3 or 4 years. So it is a support function. It was put on there, we put it on there because we did the policies. And I think it was put on there because it is something that the average one amongst us knew very little about then and don't know much now. And technology, for technology's sake, is a waste of money. You know, I have a shovel and I can make it electric, but it still works just as good when I'm putting my back behind it. So spending the money on an electric shovel is a waste of money. As a technology guy, I can come through with all these great gizmos and spend a ton of money and not get one advantage out of it. So it is appropriate that that technology committee react to the other committees. What kind of security system can we get for facilities? They have the contacts, they got the contacts, they can come up with something. How do we go a one-to-one? Do we buy notebooks or do we buy whatever these things are we got? Yeah. They reacted to that. We need to train our people. So it's a reaction to the other, because technology by itself is worthless. You know, we could really work with candles, but we took technology and we got fluorescent.
I think that's an oversimplification.
I'm a simple man. Yeah.
Mr. Quinder,
Am I gonna quit on it?
I'll die before I believe that. I think that in a strange sort of a way, and thinking back to when we first had, the first computers came into our school, it kind of followed as things happened because not a lot of people knew how technology was going to be involved in the school system. When I've talked to Joe Way a couple of times, I am amazed at the different things that he is aware of that are going on around the area that schools are doing that's interesting or different. And I'm trying to clean my house, and so I'm looking back at all these old magazines, PSBA and stuff like that, and the emphasis on the technology achievements in different schools, and I think, well, gee, maybe we could use this thing. So why are we falling behind? Because we're not thinking forward. But the problem is that if you don't know what to think about, then you don't think. And so, to me, Joe Way is valuable because he hears things and he can offer you something to think about. But the more important part of this is that when we're budgeting, we're looking at a 5-year plan. We're setting out a 5-year plan for what we're going to do so that we can save money in order to afford it. I don't see that we get that by not having a conversation or not having a tech committee. Now, it works for transportation because Mr. Wegman comes and you know exactly what he's going to save, and so you can plan. Ann knows that she needs money for 3 buses every year until something falls apart. And so it's not necessary to have a transportation committee. But we don't know from year over year, we're not predicting what we're going to do with the technology. And we should be predicting it so we can afford it. We don't know where technology is going to end. We don't know if we have to expand our wires or wireless stuff or whatever the Sam Hill is going on until he pops up and he says, oh, by the way, you have to do this. And I think, well, I don't know where the money's coming from, but I haven't heard anything about it since. So I guess it doesn't cost anything, but it must cost something. So I think it's just very difficult to wrestle with technology because none of us are really tuned in far enough to be experts on looking forward for that. I think the committee would be important. I think it probably doesn't have to meet more than once or twice a year. I mean, Joe Wade comes in and he gives his report, but if you understand all of that stuff and how much it's going to cost and where it's going, well, explain it to me the next time he does that.
But my question is, Carol, is Joe's council better suited for a closed group of people, essentially, much the technology kids and a couple of school board members sitting there talking about technology, or is his council more valuable as an advisor to facilities or as an advisor to curriculum, just as Ann advises and Betty advises?
And that's kind of the way it works, even without the board, even in the day-to-day life. Today, I saw Todd having a meeting with Julie Klein, obviously curriculum related, and who did they have with them? Someone from the technology department. I have no idea why, but I'm certain that there was a technology component to what they were discussing. So they come into just about any meeting we have, whether it be related to facilities, curriculum, whatever, because what you said is right. There is a supportive function to just about everything we do, and that's the way technology should be. It shouldn't, I'm not saying we shouldn't focus on technology, but it shouldn't be the focus. The focus is to assist us to do all the other things that we have to do, make it better, enhance it, support it, just, like Bob was saying.
But if it costs money, then how do you know in advance to have enough? I don't know. Does Joe give you a budget and say, I predict that we're going to be doing all of these things in the next 2 years, and so I need this kind of equipment or this amount of
No,
money?
he provides a 3 to 5 year projection, but with all of the newer initiatives, it is changing. But again, he would be an integral. He would be very important to be part of the discussion on prioritizing the different initiatives and how we're going to roll out the 1-2-1. So then that would be probably for the whole board to hear.
Okay.
But the committees serve as sounding boards,
But right.
Just like the administrators will go to the curriculum committee.
Right. And
I've heard something about buying a new telephone system, right? So I mean, in a sense, that's technology, that's part of our infrastructure. And should an item like that come before a committee, before it comes before the full board, so the board is more, at least the committee members are more familiar with that, maybe they've explored different alternatives
Right, that's a very good point.
in collaboration with the administration.
My question there is, should that be brought up by the facilities committee or the technology committee
Or the business committee.
or the business committee? then there again, you've got technology serving across the board, but technology is not the place where anything should be generated.
Well, Bob, can I just jump?
Yes, sir.
I think we just got philosophical for half an hour. We didn't need to. It sounds to me like we had a situation where we made a decision for whatever reason and we didn't do it the correct way. So the simplest form is to put the technology committee back, or we draft something that says, hey, we can now change it. And it sounds like collectively around the room that people would like to have the technology committee, and I certainly see that everything tends to meld together. I would think probably the simplest thing to do that would appease the people around the table would just be to bring the technology committee back, and also to correct the minor loan that we have.
And that's what I'll do, because this is not a hill I'm gonna die on. for
That's
anything.
it.
And since I had 2 minutes before it was 8:30, which is always my objective to quit, I figured I'd take the time to philosophize. We have a tremendous number of committees, and that my objective was to get rid of some that really don't contribute. So, but I'll just appoint 2 members and we'll go for it.
Or you want to ask for volunteers to?
Nope.
It's arbitrary.
No,
You always ask
volunteer?
who wants to serve on a committee.
Well, I was just gonna put 2 people on
I think we just need all clear.
it. Is there any other business to come forward?
Yeah,
Just 30 seconds worth of comment. We've had discussions about purchases of buses. I thought the discussion that we had at the Facilities Committee meeting was very informative. There were some issues brought up that I just want to call to your attention to think about. It seemed as though it was being suggested that some of the maintenance costs on the new buses were exceeding that of the older buses, which is something very different than was conveyed during our discussions. Point number 2, and I think this is an important one. It was unclear to me how many buses we have. I think the number is 50.
Yes.
And that in a normal round of bus duty, we are using 41. My question to everyone is, do we need to buy 9 buses on a regular basis for insurance against a possible maintenance problem or an outside sporting event? If I just do the rough calculus in my head, 9 buses, I'm going to guess that's $1 million. I think we could hire a bus if we need one in an emergency for less than $1 million.
Did we buy 9 buses? I thought it was 3.
Well, there's 2. And as far as the problems, it's the Mercedes engines that, they're out of warranty, that Rick and his staff have been having problems with. And the change in the diesel specifications, something that's, I can't even talk about. But, yeah.
I mean, the real issue, again, is just to go to Carol's question, is no, we were only buying 2 buses and we're replacing 2 buses. But the question is, are we replacing 2 buses that in some cases are just sitting there? And when you take all those 9 buses that we purchased that are sitting there,
I don't know that they're sitting there, because to go to a football game, away game, they're with the band, they're taking 5 buses.
But do they leave after the buses get back?
If it's an away game and it's a good dig that they leave early, no, they get the spares. Most times football gets spare buses.
On a Friday afternoon,
Right.
before dismissal.
Yes. And then, like Todd was saying, there could be 4 to 5 that are out for, mechanical reasons or whatever.
And there are field trips. So I don't, there's not 9 buses sitting on the lot.
it's just a thought that,
It seems like a lot. I recall the same thing, but then, when you think about they're there could be 4 to 5 broken down at any one time, and then you have those extra trips, you know, and I know there are times when we've called Rick about something and he says, I do not have a single bus to spare for that activity, and it's been turned down at that particular time because there's just nothing available. So I guess there are times when they are all used, but I'm sure there are times when they're not all used, obviously.
And the one thing I just want to think about again, because I view this always as, what do I do? I ask everyone around the table, we all have cars, they all break down. How many of us actually have an extra car that's sitting at home in the event that our car breaks down?
Mine.
I rest my case.
Just one moment, I don't know that you can want to reduce the fleet. I think he is operating efficiently, but if this district would ever decide to go back to 2-tier, you know, you would really have to increase your number of buses.
What?
2-tier,
Two-tier. We
we're
make 3
3-tier
trips.
now. We're
I wish we could go back to 2-tier.
7th and 8th, 5, 6, you know,
What-
so, you know,
What might
That's
be
pretty
worthy.
efficient. I
What
mean,
might
that's
be-
much more efficient than a 2-tier.
3-tier, yes,
Yeah.
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 That's what we have to.
What might be interesting is to ask Mr. Wegman to provide us with an availability figure with how many are committed athletic events and how many of them are deadlined on any given period.
Just something to think about.
Well, the field, I mean, if you look at the number of field trips, we're running a lot, you know, we're doing a lot.
Give us a,
I just had one other thing, and it's sort of relevant to that policy discussion. That is, the policy also states that when you create an ad hoc committee, that you have that right, but it should have a termination date assigned.
so they're good for 1 year. let's say.
Yeah.
And we replace our committees every year. So in fact.
No, I'm
it
not
is
talking, I'm
one.
talking about when you create a new committee, that's an ad hoc. I'm not one of these standing committees. I'm talking about, like, when you create an executive pay, it should have had a termination date. You'd have to modify the policy. You'd have to amend the policy to have a standing committee.
All right, we'll just,
Okay?
Can I say one more thing?
if you have to.
I have to. It's for the board's purposes. We had a discussion a couple of Saturdays ago, and I recall some board members, but I don't think all, stating that relative to your discussion about technology, that the board was interested in possibly going paperless and having computers loaded with the details of the board agendas and the attachments and so forth. Is that something you want me to pursue? I have talked.
We were all overstimulated one day.
Well, that's why I just want to make sure, because I didn't see 9 people nod their heads. I saw.
Show of hands, how many want to suggest? All right.
All right, so does that mean all 9 of us, or all 9 of you?
Well,
Well,
I really.
yeah, we should think about how they're gonna be used.
I don't mind having one here, but
Well, Joe and I talked about it, and he presented a lot of different possibilities to me, including, I had forgotten, they actually have program software specific to their purpose. And it would actually make it easier for my secretary to go in and edit, you know, the working document and so forth. So, yeah, we might, but I wanted to make sure that everybody was really serious about it before.
You wanna refer this to the technology committee?
Do you know, some of us have to go to all of those committee meetings,
Do
so
we
before
need a
you
bus?
say we need.
Yeah, there you go.
But we're going to have the meeting in the bus for the technology committee.
Depends on where the technology.
Thank you
I don't know
very
if we need
much.
to check